The house that my parents owned when I was born was built during the war years. I had always heard that a lot of these types of homes were built to house war workers and their families, which is also how the other side of my family came to live nearby, due to my grandparents working in war production. My parents bought the house in the early 1960s and were the second owners. The original owners, who bought the house brand new in the 1940s, were a childless couple. My parents said they would sometimes come over, way before I was born, to visit their old house. The house was small, a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house, on a lot big enough to expand. So, back in the 1970s, my parents expanded the house to add on a family room, dining room, and closet space. The add-on was very obvious, because the main part of the original house was raised foundation, and the add-on was on a concrete pad. There was a step down to go to the add-on. This add-on was built before I was born, too, or I may have been just born, a baby. My parents only ever said the 70s was when the add-on was built. The add-on was always a subject of family lore, so the versions I heard were that the guys my dad hired to lay the foundation had dug up some weird items as they were about to pour the concrete. My dad had them add a patio off the add-on too, so they had pretty much our entire backyard dug up, leveled and ready to pour the foundation and patio space. Like I said, I wasn't there when all this was happening, or maybe I was just a baby. However, there was always talk about the stuff that was dug up during the construction, like items including wood, bits of strange metal, pottery, even jewelry. Fast forward to when I was in elementary school, and just a kid. Like any boy, I would like to dig in the backyard and play. This always made my mom extremely upset. I could pretty much do anything else back there, but dig. Well, one time, I was playing with my Hot Wheels, and I wanted to make a dirt track for them, so I went to the side of my house where my mom couldn't see, and I started digging in the dirt. I found small pottery items, and what looked like glass beads, and a side of a board that was super old. My older brother had found me, and told on me. My mom got so angry that she told me to throw it away, cover up the dirt, and never dig there again. It wasn't until the year that we moved away from that house that I was a bit older, and started to really pay attention to what could have been out there. For context, there was always a spookiness to our add-on. Like when I was a kid, or my siblings, no one wanted to stay down there alone. Even one time, we had a cousin, who was about a year older than me, sleep over, and my mom had one of those sofa beds from the 1980s. That was huge, so she put him to sleep there. He ended up not making it through the night, and put a blanket in our room, and slept on the floor. He said he heard strange noises. We all heard that, saw weird shadows, and would hear scratching at the windows, sometimes. Also, I never played in the backyard at night. I never liked to be out there, after dark. So, the year we moved away from that house, I overheard my mom and dad finally start to tell that there may have been an unmarked grave, or graves, on that land that were never discovered when the tract of homes was built. Apparently, back in the 1800s, large plots of land in the area were owned by dairy farmers. Before the war, the land was just open space, as the farmers eventually moved out of the area. Even before that, the area had a different name, and was only changed as cities were formed in the 1910s and 1920s. So the home I was born into, and lived in until I was in middle school, may have had unmarked graves there. During COVID, I was sort of lost and extremely bored without human interaction. This went on for what felt like ages, until my friends and I discovered mountain biking. Our parents finally allowed us to see each other outside. Living in Washington State, we were surrounded by woods, perfect for mountain biking trails. Since we were under 16 and didn't have licenses, we couldn't drive to any actual mountain bike parks. So, we did the next best thing. We built our own trails. The one trail already near our house had a 30-foot gap jump. It was way above our skill level. We wanted to make something new. There's an entrance to this trail near my friend's house. You walk down it a ways until you reach the normal trail. To get to our trail, you find this spot where the trail takes a 90-degree turn to the left, but instead you go to the right. You have to go off the trail, through all this mud, weave between fallen trees and branches. From there, you go right again where it curls around until it goes straight. Then, you follow a hidden pathway through ferns until you reach this abandoned forest road. The forest road goes for about 80 yards or so, covered in a huge amount of mud. You'd see clumps with our footprints going about 6 inches deep, sometimes deeper. There are more fallen trees on this road, but if you keep going, it eventually stops. Then, you go off to the right and walk around a hidden pathway that weaves and curls through a huge area of ferns for maybe another 60 yards. You finally reach the bottom of the trail we made. It probably takes about 10 minutes to get there. On a good day, when it isn't wet, like during the summer, it might take only 5. Essentially, you have no reason to be there unless you're lost, which is almost impossible unless you purposely wander off trail, or you're looking for it. On this particular day, my buddies couldn't help build. So, I decided to bring my younger siblings along. I was nervous about going alone. A week earlier, my friend and I thought we found a cougar den nearby. There was some scat in a few spots. I didn't want to be alone that far out. My sister decided to come with, but my brother had other plans. We rode our bikes there, carried them through the hidden area, and tossed them into some fern bushes right before reaching the forest road. From there, we went to the trail. I mainly wanted to check for fallen trees because we had some extreme winds recently. We needed to know if we'd have to bring bigger saws. There wasn't any damage, but ironically, a week later, a tree did end up blocking the end of the trail. It's important to mention it was a rainy day. We were there for about 10 minutes as I showed my sister the trail. All of a sudden, I got a call from my mom. She said my brother was asking where we were because he was coming to find us. I guess his plans changed or something. Feeling lazy, I told my sister to walk back down and wait outside the trail entrance in the neighborhood for him. This would also give me the opportunity to do some work. I called her every few minutes, as my brother should have arrived soon, but he didn't. About 10 minutes went by, so she had been waiting for 20 minutes when my mom called me again. She said my brother had returned and couldn't find us. I was kind of annoyed but called my sister, telling her to come back and make sure nobody was around or following her when she entered the trail. We didn't want to give away our spot. I waited for 7 to 10 minutes, wondering what was taking her so long. I walked over to the end of the forest road and saw her walking all the way on the other side. I was relieved. She wasn't on the forest road yet but was walking towards it, perpendicular to it. The bushes were anywhere from hip to shoulder height, so I could see her upper body, wearing a hood. This is when I realized I didn't remember her wearing a white sweatshirt or windbreaker. As the person turned the corner, I could tell it wasn't her. It was likely a grown man. I quickly backpedaled off to the side and down the hill a bit, hiding behind a tree. I called my sister, wondering if she got lost because it was hard to get to. I didn't want this person to steal our bikes either. Oh, did I mention my bike was over $2,000? I made it worth it for how much I rode. Plus, it would last a lifetime if properly maintained. With worries about my bike, I called my sister. The second I heard the first ring, I heard a voice on the other side of the tree I was hiding behind say, "What are you doing?" It was my sister. I quickly told her to get down so she wouldn't be seen. I didn't want this person to find our trail. I didn't want to get into any trouble. I wanted to keep it hidden. I also wanted to get back to the bikes. She could tell from the panic in my voice that I was serious. When I told her there was a person and she looked, she said, "No, there isn't." I peeked over, and sure enough, nobody was there. I knew what I saw though. We made our way back, walking past where I saw the person. I was worried the bikes would be gone. As we trekked through the mud, my heart was pumping. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The adrenaline was rushing. I knew they were off in the trees, watching us. I was so distracted, thinking they were going after the bikes when they disappeared. I didn't think they'd be hiding. Thankfully, as we made our way down the trail, trying to stay calm, we arrived to find the bikes still there. At one point, it looked like there was a different shoe print because it was slightly larger and differently shaped. It was hard to tell in this area. We made our way back, constantly looking behind us to ensure we weren't being followed. Towards the end, where the trail splits and leads to the neighborhood, there's a short but wide wooden bridge covered in dirt. Thankfully, since it was raining, you could see footprints easily. I saw the extra pair. You could vividly see my first set of footprints to get to the trail, as well as my sister's. An additional set of her footprints going back and then returning, with a shoe print on top of hers, showed it was most recent. This confirmed my sighting. My heart dropped again, and we quickly got out of there, still making sure nobody else was behind us. When I got home, I didn't hesitate to tell my parents. They only told me that next time, I needed to be with her at all times. I could tell they partly didn't believe me or thought I was exaggerating. All these questions went through my head. We live in a nice neighborhood, so even if it was a random person who didn't live there, why were they there? If they were worried about why a little girl was wandering into the trails, why did they bother following her? Why so far behind and so creepily? Why not call out? If it was a worker, why were they wearing what they were wearing? Wouldn't there have been boot prints? Shouldn't they have been wearing a vest or helmet? A truck parked outside the trail. Wouldn't they have something else with them? Why hide? If they thought she was alone initially and walked past 2 bikes, why keep going? It wasn't until they saw her talking to me or just saw me when they hid. Why did I feel like I was being watched when I thought the person was off stealing my bike and not even near us anymore? Why the footprints entering but not going back? Why would someone hike in that area wearing that attire? How did they even find the area by themselves? They definitely found it because of my sister. But when they did, why follow? When they saw how hard it was to navigate, why keep going? Why feel the need to hide from 2 younger kids? Most importantly, what would have happened if I wasn't there? Anyways, I feel the need to explain some details. The footprints were maybe half an inch to an inch bigger than my shoes. My shoes were smaller at the time since they were beaters, but regardless, my guess is this person was anywhere from 2 inches shorter than me to 2 inches taller. I couldn't see their face, but they were definitely white or had lighter skin. I'm going to be honest. The person wasn't this huge, massive being to make it sound scary, but they definitely didn't fill out their sweatshirt or coat, so they weren't super scary looking. But they were definitely much bigger than me at the time. I believe I was around 5'8" and 130 pounds, so pretty small then. It's also important to note that maybe they were innocent. However, I still always wonder what would have happened if I wasn't there.